So today I would like to make this video about one of the greatest chess players of the past, Paul Morphy. He played this game in 1848, but the sources are not clear. Some say 1847, and he played against Alonzo Morphy, but I don't remember, frankly, if he's his uncle or his father. Like always in that period, a lot of people would open with a king pawn, pawn e4, then he would continue in an open game, pawn e5, and many games had this kind of gambits, in this case the king's gambit. Obviously this was a kind of romantic period, so they would accept the gambit, but this would lead to some problems in development. Now we see that Paul Morphy developed the bishop in c4. The main idea is to attack the pawn in f7. And why this idea is important? Because it's a common theme in the open games, practically. Generally, also the knight is developed in f3, then in g5, and then they both attack in f7. But here is a black turn and the answer with queen h4. Now queen h4 is not a good move because it develops the queen, which is a very strong piece, but puts the queen in a place where it can be attacked over and over, and in order to be defended the queen must move again, and this lead to a waste of tempos or tempi. Now, generally, one doesn't like to move a king because when you move a king, you lose the chance to castle and bring the king in a safe place. But in this case, there are no other good moves. And so Paul Morphy must play king f1. And now there is a problem with black's development. Black's development is behind because he moved the queen for attacking the king, and generally one should try to take out the knights or the bishop. In this case, to take out the bishop is not a good idea, also if black will do it, because his idea is to give a checkmate in f2 with the queen. Now, why this is not a good idea? Because that development can be easily refuted, while it would have been better for black to play knight f6. With knight f6, black would attack the pawn in e4 and develop one piece, or eventually he could help the queen to try to give checkmate here also, if, again, is not really important or possible, because in the beginning to try to give checkmate right away it's silly. In the beginning, like always, they say it's important to develop your pieces. So we are in this position, and as I would tell my students or someone who is watching the video for learning, I would say pause the video and try to guess the move white will play, because it's only through this kind of guesswork, through putting yourself in the other player's shoes, that you can really learn about chess and understand why some moves are made. So if you pause the video, and now we can return to the game, what does white play to avoid to have a checkmate in f2? He obviously play d4, which is really a good move because it blocks the bishop c5 from controlling the diagonal d4, e3, and f2, and at the same time develop a piece, because now the bishop c1 can attack and take the pawn f4. Notice also another thing which is very important. Now white is controlling the center, because practically these two pawns, the pawn in e4 and the pawn in d4, are controlling 4 different squares in the enemy territory, and these are central squares, so this move was really good for white. How does black continue? Black obviously return back because he believes maybe white will move the pawn d4 in d5, and then he can try again once more to give checkmate in f2, no? With the queen. But obviously Paul Morphy wasn't that naive, and he continues to develop his pieces, in this case with knight f3. Knight f3 is great because, again, what does he do? He attacks a piece which is obliged to move and develop one piece which is the knight. Not only, now the knight is controlling 2 more squares in enemy territory, so this is perfect for white. Black needs to return back, and what does white do? White develop another piece, another knight. Notice that now white has 3 pieces already developed and in the big center, so this is really great. Black now makes a mistake. The mistake is relative to the fact that, yes, we are often said that knights before bishops in developing our pieces, but we must always evaluate the position. In this case, this move, knight f6, is not really good and gives a good advantage to white. While black should have played d6. This move is better because practically allows black to control this diagonal and develop this bishop, and also contrast white in the center, okay? Because now black has at least a pawn that is trying to contrast the possible expansion of white center. The game could have continued like this, like knight d5, queen d8, because it needs to protect c7 also, and however needs to leave this square free to develop the knight. And then, of course, I'm not saying that white would have lost, because obviously this is a really good position for white. But at least it would have given black a little more space and time to organize his defense. Returning back to the game, black played knight f6, and here we see that white played queen d3, but for the engine is not really a good move. For Stockfish, that at the moment is the strongest engine, the best move was e5, and the game could have continued with knight g8, bishop takes in f4, knight c6, and the white has developed practically all the pieces and is still in a good position. Now, why queen d3 is not so good? Because it doesn't gain space. Practically when white does this and black is obliged to return back, white has gained really a lot of space in enemy territory, and this is really good. Plus the fact that if you notice, after about 8 moves, black has still 3, 4, 5 pieces in their original squares, while white has practically 3 pieces out developed and the 2 pawns in the center. So this is a perfect situation. Now, after queen d3, black plays c6. This c6 is played because black wants practically to move this pawn in d5, and then he will be able to develop his bishop. But it is not a great idea, and now we can see why. Practically, white continues with bishop takes f4, and I would like to show this idea, so I make it clear once for all. This is called big center, and it's made by all the squares. And what happens is that more pieces we have in the big center, or also in the little center, which is the most downtown part, and more active they are. Now, as we can see, white has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces in the big center against black that has only one. This count in terms of activity, which means white pieces are really active and they will attack and destroy the enemy. And now we can see how. Black, like I said, would play d5, and white exchanging d5, because doing so, white has gained access to this file, the E file. So he can go with his rook in a1, in e1, and then he can attack the king in e8. This is great, practically. So black is obliged to castle and escape from such a pin. And here again, we can see that white gains even more space with this pawn movement, and doesn't do something silly like exchanging this pawn for the pawn in c6, because after that would give one tempo to black that would develop his knight in c6. Okay, so the move pawn d6 is great because it acquires other two squares in any territory and oblige the queen to move one more time. The queen moves in d8. As I just said, the rook is brought to e1 to control the e file. And now we see a kind of natural move that is wrong, which is rook e8. Why this natural move is wrong? Well, the idea is pretty simple. As I said in the beginning, white is attacking f7 in the open games, and is attacking with all the pieces that can go there, okay? So, when one castle, it's important to have a rook in this square f8 because it defends f7, okay? In this case, black is trying to contrast white, but the problem is that he doesn't have the pieces to contrast white, so it would be better not to exchange, because white will come with more pieces to attack. In this case, the correct move after white played the rook e1 was bishop g4. In this way, he would have developed a piece, attacked one of the white pieces that can become a problem, and eventually create space for developing the other knight. Okay, so this is a better development than what black did in the game. Now, I'm not saying that black would have won or even equalized, but this would have been a better course of action. So now, after rook e8, I would like you to stop your video and think, like Morphy did, on which move you would play. Okay, if you have done that, I continue. Morphy would have played knight g5, obviously, because, as I said, he wants to attack in f7. Notice that this is the reason why these games are very important. Another world champion, Mikhail Tal, he always attack on f7, and I think he attacked on f7 because he learned the lesson from the past, which means he watched all of Morphy games, all of Steinitz games, Lasker and other great players, and saw that was a recurrent theme and something more should do. So, continuing the game, rook takes e1, king takes e1. This is a very important one, because now the king wants to go away in d2 and then bring this other rook in the center to attack. Okay? And look what happens. Black helps him because he's giving check, and of course he had to do that because he needed to defend this pawn here from the attack of the white knight and the white bishop. But playing queen e8 gives a tempo to white that makes his plan achievable, since he wanted to go in d2. And generally we shouldn't do or shouldn't let our opponent play a move that he already wanted to play. Now black is trying to defend the pawn in f7 with this move. However, again, pause the video and trying to guess the next move played by Morphy, because this is the most important exercise you can do, and is generally what I let my students do, because I give them a file with all the Morphy games or other games that I have annotated and made a training like in Chessbase 12, and so they can use it and learn from it, because when they will open the game, the position will be shown, like in this case, with a question, and they have to answer that question and find the right move. Now, if you have paused the video, we can continue with rook e1, and obviously white is pinning the bishop e6 that cannot move because behind there is the queen e8. Now black makes another mistake, but in any case the situation is desperate, so it doesn't make any change in the end. He plays knight bd7. Again, pause the video and trying to guess the next move, because this is the way you can learn. Okay, white plays knight takes e6, f takes e6, and now is the last move. You can guess, it's very easy. Rook takes e6, which wins because white has this discovery check on the king from the bishop c4, while at the same time is attacking the queen e8. And here Alonzo Morphy resigned, and the game ended. Thank you very much for watching this game. Let me know your impressions and opinions.